Welcome, you have reached review time with Imperial, and today's review is Challengers. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Let's get into it. So, let's just go over the cast. It's only 3 cast members that we have to even talk about or remember. So you guys in there as Tashi Donaldson, Mike Face as Art Donaldson, and Josh O'Connor as Patrick Swayze. So, the synopsis reads: Tashi, a former tennis prodigy turned coach, turned her husband into a champion, but to overcome a losing streak, he needs to face his ex-best friend and Tashi's ex-boyfriend. Let's get into it. So, what do I say about this movie? This movie is it was too long. It didn't have to be as long as it was. I think it's like 2 hours and 5 minutes. It didn't have to be that long. They could have shortened this movie up a lot. It could have been an hour and a half type movie. It didn't have to be so much dialogue to drag it out, because it ain't too much to it. Everything that you see in the trailers pretty much summed it up on what took place in the film. You had it starts off with the final match. That's the end, the beginning of the movie. Then you had high school buddies, Patrick and Art, and playing high school ball. They meet Tashi. That's what we see the scene in the trailer. They meet Tashi, and they got a real funny relationship. They meaning Patrick and Art. Of course, she shows up to just like the trailer. She shows up to their room and proceeds to have a threesome with them. But what she in return did is make them kiss each other, and then she left. Then they made a deal that pretty much said, she made a deal with them. Whoever wins the match between them one-on-one, she would give them her number. And so Patrick won, and he got her number, and he started messing with her. And then he signaled to Art. He pretty much knocked it down. Knocked it down, meaning he had sex with her. So Patrick went on to become a professional tennis player. Meanwhile, Tashi and Art went on to Stanford College. So one of the times Patrick came in to check Tashi in their long distance relationship, him and her had a little back and forth, and she kind of was trying to tell him like something that he could do to help his career. He pretty much like got at her. He doesn't look at her as a coach. He looks at her as a peer. And so she left. Right after that is what we see on the trailer as well, is when she gets injured. She gets injured, and he tried to come back and check on her, and she pretty much was upset with Patrick and didn't want to see him. Meanwhile, Art was there to comfort her and told Patrick just to leave. Patrick left. She tried to recover, and she could never get back healed properly to get back in the fold. So she later on seen Art, and she ended up becoming his coach. Of course, by her becoming his coach, they ended up getting engaged. Also later on, when she was engaged with Art, she ran into Patrick at one of like the Atlanta opening or something like that. And when she ran into him, of course, he lights her fire, and she, when she lit up when she seen him, and she had sex with him again. This time, Art kind of seen them talking in a lobby, and when he turned around, they wasn't there no more. So I think the whole time Art knew she was still having sex with Patrick from time to time. Fast forward to present day, they got their power couple. Art's getting tired of playing tennis, but Tashi, she loves tennis. That's her world. but he doesn't want to do it anymore. Then they got a daughter, so they got a family. They got money. Meanwhile, Patrick is living out his car. He just showing up to tennis events just to pretty much earn a buck real quick and just getting by. So he knows that they're both at this tournament. So Tashi pit Art in this tournament to like get him his fire back, not knowing that Patrick was in the tournament. So Patrick pretty much signaled Tashi to come outside and told her pretty much he wants her to coach him. And so he got one last season, one last run at it. He pretty much said, listen, Art is done. And, you know, he doesn't want to do this no more, but he's afraid that if he gives up tennis and just go into broadcasting or whatever, you gonna pretty much be done with him. And she was like, that's ridiculous. He could make his own decisions. But it came to find out that's what it was, because Art ended up telling her he was done, whether he wins the Open or not. He wanted to retire. He didn't want to do it no more. And so that was like her reality. So right after that, he cried to her, and she wanted her to hold him till he went to sleep. She held him, and when he went to sleep, she jumped on her phone, called Patrick. Patrick had gave her a number, and Patrick came and picked her up. And so they had a back and forth. Like I said, she lights his fire. So they had a back and forth, and she spit in his face. And then she stood there and looked at him, and then she ran into him and just started kissing him. And of course, he knocked it down again on present day. He knocked it down again in the car, and she told him, I need you to, not forfeit the match, but lose on purpose. And so he was like, she had already said that. He told her no at first, but then after they had sex, she said, I need you. You got to make it look real, make it look like he won. And she said, how would I know if you're doing it? And he pretty much said, you won't. So the next day came, and when they had the match, Patrick beat Art the first series. Art came back and won the second series, and then they had the last series, and they went back and forth, and it was tied. Of course, they made it more, a lot dramatic, going back and forth, and then it went back to when they were kids, when Patrick signaled to Art to let him know that he had sex with Tashi when they were younger. He did the same thing when they were older in present day. And Art looked over at Tashi like he can't believe this. But what it also did was lit a fire underneath him, like, I'm going to beat this guy. And of course, remember in the beginning of the movie, they had that bet, whoever wins the match get the girl pretty much. So they went back and forth, and it became like a volleyball. You know, when a volleyball jump up, if it's the ball close to the net, somebody jump up high and then slam it down. So he did that. Art went to hit the ball over the net. In the process of him going over the net, he literally went over the net, and Patrick threw his tennis racket and caught him. Meanwhile, Art won the last point, and it went off. Well, it showed Tashi screaming, celebrating, and then it went off. So it was too long, but out of my 4-star rating system, I give it a 2 out of 4 stars. I think the hype around it will push some people to go to the theater to see it, but it's really like one of the movies that could have went on a streaming platform. But I think the hype around it get people to the theater. There's some parts in there I could have cared less for. I don't even, it just didn't make sense for that to be in there. But other than that, too much dialogue. Could have made the film a lot shorter. And subscribe to the channel, like the video. Till next time.